I said, this is Handsome Jimmy Valiant, professional wrestler, the Boogie Woogie Man. Tell my people and my brothers and sisters, don't you dare miss Chris and Mike at Body Slam, the competition. Oh, yeah!
All right, everybody. Welcome to Body Slam, the competition. Again, I'll get the word out straight here in a minute. It's been a long day. You'll have to excuse me. Here we are again one more time for another great week of talking wrestling. And once again, we never fail you. We got a great guest on the show with us today. We have Davey Haskins on with us. Former professional wrestler, was in the business for a while, wrestling quite a few different places. And Davey, I'm going to pull you on now. You here with me?
Yes, sir. I'm right here, man. I put a big smile on my face here, no Handsome Jimmy there.
It does, doesn't it? I always make sure I play at the beginning of every show because it puts a big smile on my face too. He did that for us at the end of the show that day. He says, hey, I'd like to cut a promo for you guys. Can I do that? And I was like, you have to ask? Yeah, you can do that. Please do that.
I tell you what, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, watching the Jerry Lawler days and the Austin Idol, and man, old Handsome Jimmy was one of the biggest stars back then, and getting to know him and later on in life was a pretty big thrill for me.
Well, see, me and you were going to get along just fine then, because I grew up, as I told you a moment ago, just outside of Nashville. Memphis is what I grew up on, watching wrestling for the most part.
Yep.
Eventually,
there you go.
Eventually, the NWA got to roll in, Crockett Promotions, Mid-South, NWA, and all that good stuff. Yeah, and we got to watch that on TV locally, and then Vince brought his on cable, and we got to watch the old WWF on cable. And before you knew it, ESPN's showing the AWA and WCCW, and it's wrestling everywhere. But of all the wrestlings I watched growing up, Memphis was the best to me because everybody who was anybody came through Memphis, Tennessee at one point.
That's exactly right. I started in January of '84, and probably out of my first 20 matches, I probably wrestled the Macho Man, about 17 of them. And I don't know if you know how the old territory went. We worked 7 days a week. Start on Memphis on Monday, Louisville on Tuesday, Evansville on Wednesday, spot shows Thursday and Friday. Memphis TV was live Saturday morning. And then Nashville Saturday night, Jackson, Tennessee Sunday. And it started all over again.
Nashville, Tennessee at the fairgrounds. That's where I spend many a Saturday night. My dad would take me out there to go watch you guys. And luckily, y'all would come to some of the smaller towns, too. And I grew up, I was younger. Yeah. And that was always great. You was like a national guard armory or something and fill that up.
Yep.
I think in Waverly, Tennessee is where one of the places y'all came to when I was younger, in Camden, Tennessee, and those were all close to where I grew up at when I was young and everything, and we got to watch you guys there. And then that was even just like icing on the cake for me, because occasionally I'd get to go to the fairgrounds, but when you guys come closer, it was like a guaranteed thing for me at that point.
I'll tell you what, that fairgrounds, they had some unbelievable matches during the days. I think that's something that these guys, the WWE stars now, I think that's something they miss out on. When we go to those little towns, we get to talk to the fans, get to be up close and personal, and I don't keep up with it that much. Every now and then I will, go with the Kings there, and he'll usually help me out with a few tickets and carry some people who want to see it. I don't keep up with the WWE product. When I was a kid, but just like you, I watched that Memphis wrestling, and every Saturday morning I was glued to that TV. But it's just such a different product now.
Well, you're not missing a whole lot by not keeping up with it. I don't mean to sound mean about it. I mean, I still watch it sometimes when I get a chance, and I'll watch the pay-per-views because the network they got, it's only $9.99, and I love watching the old stuff on the network and some of their original things where the guys get together like a round table discussion and talk about things from the past. I like to watch those as well. And the pay-per-views are usually pretty good, but the product they put on television, you don't hurt your feelings at all by missing it, because the first 20 minutes usually is them just building up their soap opera for the night. And then someone may...
Yeah.
Exactly. 3 hours.
3 hours of live TV a week. I always used to hear it, back, you could only watch a Rocky movie so many times. You know,
Yeah.
and they're having these guys shoved down the fans' throat. And, look at Jerry Lawler in Memphis, in that area that you grew up in. It's amazing, and I hear people say, well, he owned the territory. I don't care if he owned it or not. To keep popular for all those years, sell the Mid-South Coliseum out more than Elvis, that's pretty strong.
The man shows up at a Memphis Grizzlies game at halftime for a little quick fun match or something, and the people there go nuts over him still.
Hey, I remember, year after year, they'd have a most popular person in Memphis contest, and he would win it every single year. It was just unbelievable. But, he's done so much for that city. I saw on Facebook today where he's opening up a restaurant on Beale Street, plans on being there live. Mm-hmm. Anybody listening ever gets a chance to go by and actually sit down with him, the guy, he's something else. He's what the business is all about.
Somebody told me that same thing a couple of weeks ago, and, I can't remember who it was that told me. We had Steve Cox last week. I don't think it was him. It may have been him that said he heard that.
Never make it to the Memphis territory. Did you have Tracy Smothers on?
Steve actually was there for a minute. That was when they were doing the whole Texas takeover, and it was USWA.
Right.
He was there for just a minute because he had an awesome story. Now, I usually I don't push my stuff on my guests that come on, but I'm gonna tell you, if you get a chance to go to my website and look at the archives, pull up the Steve Cox and listen to this man talk. He is hilarious. He told a story. He's in the dressing room in Memphis, and he sees this man walk by, tall, skinny, whitest hair you ever seen. And we're just going to talk about Jimmy Valiant. I thought he was talking about Jimmy Valiant. And he said, man, who is this joker right here? He says, who's he related to get in this place back here? And it was Jeff Jarrett. So,
yeah.
It's the owner's kid. What?
Yeah.
he had some good stories, no doubt. But yeah, he got the tail end of it. He got to come in for just a minute, and then he didn't get to experience a good time though.
Steve, I started out in the Memphis area for a couple of years, but the first territory I went to was Mid-South Wrestling, as it changed over to UWF. And me, Steve Cox, Shane Douglas, and Gary Young were all up for Rookie of the Year. And we had, wrestled each other a lot. They are actually trying to put me and Shane together as a tag team. And one of the highlights of my career, we would do these Great American Bashes, and the NWA guys would come in, and our guys would go, and do big shows. And we were in the Houston Summit, and Dusty Rhodes calls me and Shane into the little office where he would go over to finish us with the matches and stuff. He goes, Shane and Davey, we gonna make y'all the next Rock and Roll Express, baby. So we were pretty excited about that, but that's kind of when the wheels started going off, and the UWF, folded, and things just. Eddie Gilbert was actually our booker over UWF, and Eddie helped me out, more than anybody. He was. He just took a liking to me. My very first match was on Memphis TV. Me and a guy named Johnny Wilhoit wrestled Iron Mike Sharp, who just passed away here recently. Eddie Gilbert and Jimmy, the Mouth of the South Heart, was their manager, and that was pretty cool. That was live on
Memphis Jimmy
TV.
Hart.
And, yeah, man, Jimmy Hart is he's something else. He's something else. So. That's the kind of guys I start out the business with. Like you said, Rick Rude came through, King Kong Bundy, Bam Bam Bigelow. Just the list goes on and on. Just Paul Orndorff.
Yeah, Paul Ken Patera was there at one point before he got in that trouble and then got back in WWF.
Exactly.
Undertaker. A lot of people there that are big stars today were there at one point, like the Undertaker. Was he? Was he the Master of Pain? I think when he first got there.
You know what? I can't remember. He might have been Mean Mark Calloway. Mean Mark Callis. Yeah. It was one of the two because he was in Texas under, I think, with a mask on, as Texas Red, I think, at one point.
Because I don't think they knew what to do with him just yet. And then I think he was either Master of Pain when he got there and took the belt from Lawler first match against him, or he was Mean Mark Callis, one or the other. I think he was Master of Pain there, and then when he went to the NWA WCW, he was Mean Mark Callis there as a part of the Skyscrapers.
Okay.
I think that's what it was. If memory serves me correctly.
Me and Johnny Rich, when I was doing the Davey Rich gimmick, me and Johnny Rich actually wrestled Dan Spivey and Sid when they were the Twin Towers or the Skyscrapers, or and Teddy Long. We wrestled them 31 days in a row, every day of the month of July, everywhere from American Airlines Arena to Madison Square Garden. Because every day was a Great American Bash in all the big cities, and that was pretty cool.
We have Teddy coming on next week with us, actually.
Oh man, well, be sure and tell him I said hi. I hadn't seen him in years. I see guys like that, and Ron Simmons when down in Mid-South, me or UWF, me and Ron travel together all the time, and what a great guy he was. When I see these different guys, it sure would be nice to see everybody. I actually have a few of the I don't know if you call them legends or I call them old-timer shows coming up where I'll get to see the Bullet. I got a quick little story I'll tell you about Bullet. When I was in UWF, Shane and I would wrestle Tim Horner and Brad Armstrong. They were Lightning Express. They were the tag team champs. They were actually fusing with Rick Steiner and Sting, with Eddie Gilbert managing them. And every now and then they'd throw us in against them. But that's where I met Brad Armstrong. And when everything kind of went south of UWF, I got a call from Bob Armstrong, and he's hey, we're fixing to start a territory in Knoxville, Tennessee, and would love to have you come in and put you with Johnny Rich and call you Davey Rich, and he says you'll be on top, wrestling against the Rock and Roll RPM. Would you be interested? I said, well, I'd be interested. I've been first, second match, for 3 or 4 years. I said that'd be awesome. Ever since then, been very good friends with the Armstrongs. I'm lucky enough to see Brian, the Road Dogg, and Scott both at a WWE show a few months back up in Providence, Rhode Island. Both of those guys were great.
Yeah.
I'm so proud.
Lost Brett Armstrong way too early, too. That was a shame. That was very, very sad.
That's two people, Brad Armstrong and Doug Furness. Doug, I was just in Nashville this week, and got with two very close friends of Doug's, and I was Doug's roommate for a little bit over a year. And these two guys, lived there with us, at different times. And just on March the 4th was I believe it was March the 3rd, and it's been 4 years since he passed away. And I just, to this day, it's just so hard to believe he's gone. And I'm going to tell you, he was one great athlete. He never really did a whole lot in the United States because he was pretty snug. They loved him over in Japan. He about half the guys are scared of him here. He's so strong. But what a great guy.
I do remember him as well. Got to see quite a bit of him on TV when I was younger as well. You asked me earlier, had I ever had Tracy Smothers or talked to Tracy Smothers on here? Not yet. I've talked to him on Facebook a couple of times, just briefly, just in the little chats. He's got too many fans that's already got him, so I can't get a friend on his friend list right now. Yeah, he's got so many people on there. I missed that opportunity a while back, but I can comment on things because I follow him.
He's a great guy, man. Great guy.
Oh, I would love to talk to him.
Travis. Yeah, him and Billy Travis started just about the same week, and it was interesting.
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you something about that. You reminded. I was trying to remember because I kept seeing your name on Facebook when I friended you on there. All these wrestlers I was on with, David Haskins kept popping up. I'm like, man, where do I know that name from? Right. I know that name from somewhere, and it just kept, and it wasn't the Davey Rich gimmick that hit me at first because I didn't realize. It didn't kick into me, to be honest with you, until just yesterday. I was like, oh, my God, he was Davey Rich also. Why did I not remember this? Now it's all coming back to me. And I was thinking, when you were on...
This is David Haskins.
Yeah, when you were on Memphis, you first started out, you would come out there and you would wrestle, like you said, Randy Savage, or you might wrestle
Mongo,
I don't know.
anybody
Whoever was bad at the
wrestling
time.
Monday night. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And they would come out and they would get the victory over you or something. But as time went on, your status would change. And it reminded me of Tracy Smothers and Billy Travis and Bobby Fulton, actually, too. Because when I first remember Bobby Fulton coming in as a singles wrestler, he was kind of the same as well, where he was in, but he wasn't quite getting the wins at first until they started steadily moving him up the ladder a little bit because, things were just getting better and better for him as it went. Next thing you know, he was in mid-card. Then he gets thrown together with Tommy Rogers and takes off. It's like, magic almost, instant. And then I was like, that's where I remember you from. That's where I remembered you from the most now.
Back in those days, very seldom that you just come in and start winning, every week. I mean, I used to joke with Jerry Lawler. He'd say, I'd say, man, I think I've lost more matches on Memphis TV than anybody. And he goes, no, I got that record. So, I mean, it's funny to hear him say that, because, especially now that they have Facebook, they have YouTube, and you can really see all of these cards, these great cards from the early 70s, I mean, just, Jerry Lawler and Bobby Shane and, Bob Armstrong, I mean, Tommy Rich, I mean, man, it was an honor to wrestle as Davey Rich. I mean, Tommy Rich, when he came in, they did a little angle in USA where Johnny and I were going against RPMs, and Bill Dundee was special referee. Of course, he was a babyface when the match started, and he turns on us and attacks us with his boot and leaves us laying. So we bring Tommy in, and Tommy probably did 10 shows, and every single one of them were hard sellouts. I mean, he, back in those Georgia Championship wrestling days, I don't know if anybody was ever over as much as he was. I mean, the Buzz Sawyer, all that stuff.
The Buzz Sawyer feud was awesome. That was something else. I don't think there was ever more blood other than Abdul the Butcher and Brody against each other, maybe. There wasn't more blood than Sawyer and Rich against each other, especially in that cage match.
It was last for the Battle of Atlanta or whatever, that very last match.
It was really something else.
Yeah, that's when wrestling was wrestling. And I mean, they keep trying to, I know Jeff Jarrett's opened up something. And I talked to Shane Douglas a couple weeks ago. They're starting a deal out in Las Vegas, but I don't think anybody will ever capture the whole magic. And I think another part of that is cable TV and the internet. I mean, anything that's going on. I mean, 30 minutes after the card's over, it's already been blasted all around the world. So there's
the internet was the biggest downfall. Everybody says Vince McMahon was the biggest downfall. He didn't help anything by destroying the. I personally feel like he destroyed the territories, but I mean, cable TV took wrestling to what it is now. It's not that Vince McMahon did. He just accepted it finally.
Yeah, Jim Crockett and them did the same thing. So, I mean, when you buy up the territories and offer the guys all this money, they can't say no. And the promoters couldn't say no. I don't blame anybody. I just say it was, a good thing lasted for a lot of years.
I tell a lot of the young people that I talk to when we talk wrestling on Facebook. I got a page for this specifically on Facebook and everything to do. That's the page you're on with me. And I'll tell them all. I'll say, look, if they're young, I'll say, you missed the opportunity to grow up to see some of the best wrestling there ever was. If you ever want to see good wrestling, I suggest you go to YouTube. You type in Mid-South Wrestling. You type in Memphis Wrestling. I said type in WCCW or World Class or Von Erich Wrestling if you want to. Check out the old AWA days, I'll tell them. Anything like that. If you want to see good wrestling, check those out. That's especially the smaller territories like the Memphis Wrestling, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Mid-South when it was around. It still wasn't huge then.
Von Erich deal, yeah.
Right, and then you had another Dallas area where Joe Blanchard ran out of his area that had some good wrestling there.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, back then, it was clear cut. You knew who the bad guy was. You knew who the good guy was. And there's still that little bit of believability I mean,
Mm-hmm.
now, if you believe it, people, laugh at you and, make a fool out of you. But, it's funny. I still have people, oh, yeah, but hey, man, why didn't you win very much? And I'm like, 2 minutes ago, you was telling me how fake it was. Now you're asking why I didn't win. So, I mean, I think, people still like a good emotional match where there really is a good guy and really is a bad guy. Yeah. I mean, it's it was just nothing like it. Nothing like it.
And
Memphis
the thing
is one of the best.
And the thing is, a lot with the guys that like to watch wrestling is the guys like to watch a good fight, whether it be boxing, UFC, wrestling, a choreographed fight in a movie. We don't care. If it's a good fight, we're going to talk about it for weeks with our friends, And the fact that wrestling was around the time and you guys made it so believable at the time when it would happen. I mean, when people really learn how to sell a move well, and we've seen a move get sold 110%, like someone get hit with a hard clothesline, sometimes people take that hard clothesline and they just take it hard against the chest and fall down. Well, that's not very believable. But when someone take that hard clothesline and they halfway flipped back and landed on their shoulders almost and rolled on over, you're like, oh my God, that dude is strong. Look at that. Kamala the Uganda Giant would come in and single-handedly, open hand chop somebody on the head, and they would look like it was just agonizing pain.
Oh yeah.
So
man. He's believable. Again, we go back to believability part. I mean, I'll never forget being on cards with him, and we'd be in a gym or National Guard Armory, 500-600 people, and he'd come out and he'd have that guy leading to the ring, and he'd start going into the crowd. People would leave their seats. That whole place would lose their mind because people were scared of him. There's Ox Baker, the believability of that guy when the Road Warriors, first came onto the scene. These are guys that, the Mongolian Stomper on Memphis TV, nearly killed me. I was still scared of that guy. He passed away again. He was another one that passed away just a few weeks ago. Guys that were just, you could see him and you're like, Joe LeDuc. That was another one that just comes to mind.
He looked crazier and everything.
Oh, I know. When they came on, people didn't go to the bathroom. They were going to watch and see what these guys are going to do. And that was the beauty of, Memphis wrestling or, wherever they happen to be. But, depending on where you grew up, I go all over the country with my regular job, and people have stories and heroes and, they're not familiar with the Memphis guys, but they're low. I go to Portland a lot. Don Owens, had wrestling up there, and they have their favorites. So that's the beauty. Minnesota had the AWA guys. And, they believe in those
Portland,
guys.
Didn't Portland have like Roddy Piper there for a while? Buzz Sawyer, Tom Pritchard, I think.
Billy Jack Haynes was a big star up there. Doug Summers.
Buddy Rose was there. Buddy Rose was there.
Buddy Rose. Wrestling was huge up there. At one time there had to be 20, 25 territories, and it was just it was good. Everywhere, everybody had magic in a bottle. They were selling out everywhere, and just had some great guys. But I think that's what's wrong with the guys now. They're trying to create these new stars, and they have a training center in Orlando. But if you're not out in front of the people, I just don't think you can learn. It's like
it's hard to simulate that.
Yeah, it's like practicing football. I know a lot of guys who were terrible practice players, but when the lights came on and it was a Friday night or a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon when they were playing the game, they were great. And some of these guys just never, get to develop their talent. And I just don't know, I don't know, how they're going to do it.
I think one of the last good batches that WWE brought in from a developmental territory, that was OVW, that Danny Davis was running.
Right.
They had John Cena was there. That's where he came out of. They called him the prototype, I think. There, Dave Bautista was there. Brock Lesnar was there. one of the women wrestlers. I forget who she was now. She was from there as well. And it seemed like there was one, Randy Orton as well, I believe. Randy Orton. Now,
Wow.
four of those four guys went on to be big stars for the company. And
Right.
they knew how to act in front of a crowd. They knew how to talk. They knew how to do the walk. They had it all down pat because they had been wrestling in front of audiences, whether it had been, 200 people in a high school gym or, 5,000 people at a football field or something. I don't know. I mean, they were in front of people at least.
Yeah. Danny Davis, I mean, he's done it all. He was great as a nightmares, but man, that guy, he knows how to express those guys. And there's no doubt. I don't know who all is at the WWE deal now. I think Steve Kern's still there. I mean, growing up, he was one of my favorites.
Yeah. Steve Kern is still there behind the scenes. You've got.
I know Brad Armstrong was there at one time, and I know Tom Pritchard. Both of those guys are, unbelievable. But I don't know who's left there.
I don't know if Tom Pritchard's still with him or not. Curran's still there. Then they get some of the
Knoxville, so he's not with us.
Yeah.
But
they had Ricky Steamboat working behind the scene, I think. I don't know if he's NXT or if he's with WWE now. Now they got Steven Regal still helping to run things in NXT.
Yeah, he's very good. Very good.
And I forget, before Dusty died, they had a special on talking about all these people back there they had and who was helping to develop these kids, and that's why they were all coming out so good. You had people who could talk in the day. They had people who knew how to sell a crowd, how to sell moves, how to act to the people, because you had some of these kids come out straight in, they got an attitude like, you need to appreciate me because I put in hard work back in the indie scene.
Right.
Well, not all the people in the indies are great wrestlers, really. There are some good ones.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good ones. A lot of good ones that go unnoticed.
I mean, very seldom. I mean, they may be wrestling 4 times a month, maybe on every Saturday night, or if they're lucky, maybe Friday and Saturday, but you hardly ever see an independent show during the week.
That's true, and it's true.
Again,
it's not like it used to be.
Guys' fault. Yeah, I mean, even back in the day, you'd catch an independent show, especially if it was in a hot territory. They might run on the night that the main territory, the main company would be off. A couple of the guys from the main company might even go work for them. So you just never know. I just don't think they're getting the real ring experience. Hey, go back to The Rock. I mean, he rode with, remember Tony Williams and Reggie B. Fine?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he rode with us on his tryout matches, and I mean, they didn't roll a big contract out to him. I mean, we went from Memphis to Louisville, wrestled there in Louisville, to Wheeling, West Virginia, back over to Lexington, Kentucky, and back to Memphis. He was there 3 days straight and wrestled all 3 days, dark matches on TV tapings, and, I mean, big, good-looking guy, but, I mean, they didn't jump right on him. I guess they had to take a look and develop a character and all that, but, I mean, look at him now. I mean, but, then, I mean, he was doing the Flex Cabana, gimmick in Memphis, working with,
right.
Jerry Lawler's group. So
he was, matter of fact, I think Brian Christopher brought him in, I believe, to team with him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but you got guys like Brian and Doug Gilbert and Lawler. I mean, the Memphis territory, even towards the end, still had great wrestlers. PG-13 with Whoopi D and Jamie. I mean, all those guys could go. So I mean, if he was, in that territory, and towards the end, I don't know how many days a week they ran, but I mean, Lawler always had a good product.
I will say that. Now, he did make sure he brought in someone good for people to see. And I'll tell you what I really liked about the Memphis shows. It was only an hour long, for one thing, okay? You got 1 hour each week of the show. Now, on Saturday nights, they would show you on the Jackson Channel 7 in Nashville. I don't know what it was called, where it was everywhere else, but they would show matches from the Mid-South Coliseum Saturday night. And it may have been from the week before, I guess, or something. I don't really remember what day it would have been on.
From Monday night, yeah.
But you would see those, and they would show those on TV, or they may have shown them from Louisville or Evansville, whatever was the best night I guess they had. They would show that late night, so you'd see the matches from the other places you didn't get to go as well. They were generous enough to do that. They didn't have to do it, they could say, hey, come watch our shows if you want to see us live.
Yeah,
but no,
exactly.
they would put that show on. And then during the
Those
regular
matches
show,
are so good though that make you want to go. You want
yes.
to go see it live. But
What made me want to watch it live?
2 hours that whole week, and I mean the WWE shows 3 hours. Then they turn around and do SmackDown the next night or whichever night it's on. So
well, they do it. They used to do it the next night when they recorded it. I think SmackDown's live now too, so it'll be on Thursday nights, I believe. But still, they're doing what, 2 hours of SmackDown?
Yeah, I mean, so that's 5 hours of free TV. And again, but they at least they're not going to a town every week. They spread it out. If I was guessing, they probably hit their major towns once a quarter or something.
They kind of have to spread it out because they made it such a nationwide product. They have to spread it out really for that. But one thing that they do a very poor job of, and I think it was maybe Bobby Fulton I talked about this with. He was like my second guest I had on the show, my first wrestler I had on the show ever. And he was fun to talk to. He was great too. So,
he's done it all.
Yeah. And what we discussed is they took away the story building process. No, you know what? I'm sorry. It wasn't him. It was Ricky Morton. So if he's listening, he'd probably kill me and won't come back to the show now.
Yeah.
But it was Ricky Morton. They took away the building process.
Second generation, his dad, Paul Morton, was arguably the best referee ever. When I first started, he refereed every show. He was unbelievable. And then Ricky, the history speaks for itself. Probably the half of the greatest tag team ever. You could argue anyway.
Well, I grew up with two favorite tag teams, and my favorite tag teams were both from Memphis, starting out. And it was the Rock and Roll Express and the Fabulous Ones. That was my two favorite tag teams.
Oh, yeah. The Fab were really popular when I started. And then, towards the end with Smoky Mountain, I was fortunate enough for me and Johnny, we were doing a party board gimmick, wrestled against the Heavenly Bodies, Stan Lane and Tom Pritchard. Mm-hmm. It's just, unbelievable. Again, with Cornette running that one, that's another territory that, you just wonder, there wasn't so much, TV at the time, it could have possibly made it.
And once again, Smoky Mountain was an hour long too, was it not?
Right, hour-long TV show, action-packed, a lot more wrestling than talking, that was probably the very last old-school territory.
I think so, and it was a lot like Memphis on its own. I don't think they did pay-per-views or anything, right? They did.
What they did? They
did they?
We were on the very first one. I can't remember the names that they used. Now they didn't do them monthly, but I'm pretty sure they probably did 3 or 4, before it was over. But again, you got that style of wrestling. The territory probably lasts 2 years. So that's once every 4 or 5 months.
What they did that was so great was just like Memphis and Smoky Mountain both, and even the Crockett days when you had Dusty and the Rock and Roll Express, Magnum TA, Nikita Koloff, and all them. They built a storyline up to the pay-per-view. You wouldn't see them facing off against their opponent every week. You may see them get jumped or something and return the favor sometime down the road, but they would build the storyline up. And like if it was Crockett time, you would have the Rock and Roll Express against the Andersons. That's one big time I remember them going against the Andersons. Each week, the Andersons would come out and they would talk about what they're going to do to them. They'd decimate their opponents, whatever. The Rock and Roll Express would come in, throw that double drop kick out, and it's over with. They'd come over there and talk about the Andersons for a minute, and you get excited listening to it. And occasionally there was a confrontation out there at the announcer's booth that might have led to a fight, might not have, but you didn't know. And then sometimes it would end in a fight, and it would go off the air, and you don't know what happened until next week when you tuned in. So they built the story up. They kept you wanting to know what happened to see, and you couldn't find it on the internet, obviously, because that wasn't around at the time. But like in Memphis wrestling, they would come out each week. There was always somebody jumping somebody at Lance's table every week. You couldn't get away from it.
And then if they had a good storyline, like a Bill Dundee against Jerry Lawler, or Jerry Lawler against Austin Idol, or the fabulous ones against the Boondocks. Hey, those storylines would last a year and a half. You know, I mean, they'd have every match under the sun, a concession stand brawl, I mean, a cage match, a Texas Death. I mean, they would just keep on and on. And, I mean, that way, you know, you knew the good guys, you knew the bad guys, you could relate to the feud, you know. And, I mean, that's where you got attached to it, and that's where if they came to National Guard Armory or a high school gym or a town near you, you wanted to go see it live. You know,
and it wasn't always a finisher. It wasn't always a finisher that won the match for you. In other words, it wouldn't be like, you know, Rock and Roll Express always had that double drop kick. Well, today you get these guys out there, and if you told them, all right, you got the new tag team, you got the Uso brothers out there. Hey, now look, new finishing for you this week. You guys are going to do the double drop kick. And they're going to look at you like crazy and go, who's going to lay down for a double drop kick? That's
a regular move about first, second minute of the match. Now people just kick out of that at once.
Macho Man's elbow from the top rope is like a mid-match move now with Dean Ambrose.
Exactly right. I remember
there is no more.
Fargo used to pick people up, drop them on his knee, and I never saw somebody. They called it the atomic drop, and I never, ever saw somebody get up from that. You know,
the atomic knee drop?
And now that's just a regular move at the beginning of a match. I mean,
they turned that move into a funny move is what they did. They turned it to a funny move more than anything, because whenever you would do it, the person would sit there and grab their butts, and even Jackie Fargo would do it. He would sit there and grab his butt and gyrate his hips with him, you know, like he's laughing at him or something.
I mean,
that's the kind of stuff I do miss these days. These guys do their finishers on each other 4 or 5 times for one of them finally stays down for the 3 count. That's not really exciting. And you see the pay-per-view matches every Monday night on Raw anyway. They'll put them on there in some form or fashion. Then they'll rinse and repeat it on Thursday night SmackDown. The following Monday they'll come back and they'll have the same match in a way, but it'll be a tag team match now instead of a single match. They'll throw somebody else in the mix on both sides, but the main focus is those same 2 guys usually. And then by the time the pay-per-view comes around, you've already seen it 4 times, and you're like, well, I don't really care who wins anymore.
What new can they do, you know?
You know, and to be honest with you, the only reason why I watch it is just to report on it. You know, for people to know that I'm keeping with it.
You know, we're kind of bashing them a little bit, but about a month they'll do a little show called WrestleMania. Right, I live in Austin, Texas, about 150 miles from my front porch up there. They'll break the attendance record at Jerry's World, and so there's somebody watching it and somebody liking it. And you know what? More power to them. I mean, I hope they do great. You know, Vince was always nice to be, Triple H, everybody up there. And I mean, man, I hope they keep going. And who knows? Maybe someday, you know, they'll start, you know, booking it a little bit different. Kind of get back to an old school style. You just never know.
I don't want to bash them. I really don't. But, I mean, it gets to the point where, as a fan, when you try to watch it and you find out that you just can't watch it anymore because you keep getting the same storyline every week and nothing's changing on it, it gets so hard to watch it. And you feel like you put your time and effort and money into stuff, buying their products, buying the pay-per-views, watching the TV show, trying to hope for something different, that you get mad and turn it off. Now, I never once got mad back growing up and turned any wrestling off because everything was new every week. And it was always exciting, but I guess you can't always have what you've always had before, especially the way it's turned out. Because like I said, all Vince really did was accept the fact that the internet had taken over and come out on television and said, we are, you know, entertainers. We're not going to pretend to make you believe and insult your intelligence and do all this stuff. We are entertainers. We are athletes. It is real. We do take falls. We take chair shots. We are stuntmen. We learn how to do these things. We were taught, but, you know, it has a predetermined outcome, but it's not fake by any means. These guys still have to learn how to land, and these guys are still hurting themselves. You know, every year they get a new injury, things that they're fighting. So,
well, the main difference I see, I mean, you know, we talked about Handsome Jimmy earlier, and then Austin Idol and Jerry Lawler and the Macho Man back in the 80s, 90s. When those territories were going, you developed your own gimmick. You didn't have a group of writers when you walked in, or email them to you, hey, here's your interview tonight, and you do it word for word. I mean, you came up with your own interview. They told you how long you had, and Handsome Jimmy, developed his character. And, I mean, they may have said, hey, here's what you're trying to get over, or, here's what town this is for, or something like that. But, Handsome Jimmy did his interview. Jerry Lawler did his interview. Ric Flair in those Mid-Atlantic days, Buzz Sawyer, Tommy Rich, I mean, Macho Man, I mean, they had their own characters, and they developed them, better than, a group of, committee of bookers. I mean, if you come up with something, you have more passion, and you're trying to, you know what you're trying to get over to the people. And I mean, I just think it's too scripted. I mean,
a lot of it is, and because when you talk about scripted, I don't know. You said you don't keep up with the current product. They have a wrestler named Roman Reigns. He's the son, or I think he's the son of one of the Wild Samoans, Siki, that was here in Pensacola.
Now, I know both of those guys.
Okay, so
Samoans.
now, and the whole family is huge in wrestling. I mean,
I
believe Rosie was his brother. He was a part of the Samoan SWAT team, and then he did that whole superhero in training thing with Hurricane Helms. It was kind of humorous and stuff like that. But now Roman Reigns is out there, and he's a beast of an athlete. He's big. He's very believable, and the fact that he's got the build for the sport, he can go out there and put on great matches. But he has a hard time talking, and I don't know if it's because he don't feel comfortable with what they write for him, or if he's just not a natural talker or not. It's like he needs someone to either work with him to open up a little bit and feel his character as more as this is who you are, just embrace it and run with it and then say things, or are they feeding him stuff in that he doesn't want to really say, but that's the direction he's having to go with it.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well, back in the
it also doesn't help that his cousin's The Rock. That doesn't help either.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt. But back in the day, you either had to have a look, you had to be able to wrestle, or you had to be able to talk. And then if you had a look, could wrestle and talk, you're a Ric Flair or Ricky Steamboat or Jerry Lawler. I mean, your very, very best wrestlers can be a heel or a baby face. You just got to be able to do it to get put in the different storylines and, to have longevity. I mean, but, your Tommy Riches, Doug Gilberts, all those guys, I mean, they could, be heels or baby faces. They could all talk. They could all wrestle, so, that helped out.
And what amazed me about interviews in that time frame you're talking about, you mentioned Eddie Gilbert, Jerry Lawler, Steve Kern did it a few times that I know of. I remember. I can't remember too many people, especially today's day and age, that can pull off an interview where they truly seem angry. I mean, I'm going to kill you mad.
Passion. And when you develop your own character, you after a while you start believing it. I mean, Steve Kern believed he was Fabulous Boy. Jerry Lawler believed he was the king. Eddie Gilbert believed he was hot stuff. But one other thing that I think people overlook, man, they had great announcers. Lance Russell was one of the best that set up interviews. Gordon Soley, when they were building me as Davey Rich up there as Johnny Rich's partner, man, if Gordon Soley said something, if Gordon Soley said Davey Rich is a young upcomer, he's going to be a great wrestler, hey, everybody believed it.
Crowd knew it.
Yeah, I mean,
they believed it.
Yeah, I mean, that art's kind of gone. I'm kind of, partial. Jim Ross was our announcer way back in Mid-South or UWF, and I always liked his style. I thought he was a great announcer. I don't really know what they're looking for now, but I mean, they don't have a great announce team anymore. There's three of them together, and those three together cannot hold JR and Jerry Lawler's, scripts in their hands, but also themselves. Yeah, I can't believe that Vince can't see that, and or Triple H. These guys, they know what the fan. Triple H was man, I wrestled him in WCW. You know, he's 100, Terror Rice is 190 pounds. I mean, he's a student of the sport.
Now,
you know, I mean,
you have practically wrestled everybody in the book, it seems like. I looked up online, and it's got like a list of some of your matches. I don't know if it's all of them or not, but just even some of them. It looks like you had wrestled practically everybody in the WWF has to offer or had to offer before you were there.
I got to wrestle Sting and Ultimate Warrior, their first match on Memphis TV. You know, one of Sid Vicious's very first matches. You know, he was from right there in the Marion, Arkansas area. Bam Bam Bigelow. I mean, you know, the list goes on, and man, I tell you what, I see what those guys have developed into. Man, every single one of them were good guys going up, and you know, all of them were good. You know, when I would see them down the road, if I see, you know, any of them now, still gracious, good guys. I mean, you know, I don't know any of the wrestlers. You know, I think we were talking about a little bit earlier. Most everybody are, you know, just pretty good guys. You know, making a living and, you know, doing what they love. And I always thought, you know, better than doing a show and having some guy that was built real good, you know, win the show and, you know, giving him a big contract, put him in the business. And I think having somebody who loves the business, again, that goes back into the passion and being able to make it believable. Because I'm telling you, you know, if you grew up watching it and you're lucky enough to be riding, you know, to a town with Handsome Jimmy Valiant and Plowboy Frazier and Jerry Lawler and Austin Idol, I mean, you know, childhood, you know, heroes. You know, it makes you want to try harder. It makes you want to, you know, to wrestle harder, to do all the stuff. And I mean, again, you know, those guys were, you know, my childhood heroes. You know, and I mean, I know it's still there. I mean, I know they've really, you know, the marketing and all that, but it's just a different story, you know. I mean, it's just different than the different things that me and you've been talking about.
Yeah, and you know, it's kind of similar with me in a sense. I think I've been doing this show with my co-host Mike, who's normally here. We've been doing this show together for about 17 weeks now, I guess, maybe, right. Not including the 2 independent shows. We have a separate series I started a couple of weeks ago where I talked to some people on the independent circuit and try to help build them up and get their companies' names out there too and stuff like that. And so yesterday I talked to a guy named David Besner, the American Giant. The week before that was Samantha Starr. She's the daughter of Sam Houston and Baby Doll. She's a women's champion somewhere right now. I think it's called Vixens of Wrestling or something like that, or Vicious Wrestling or some kind. But I week in, week out, I'm looking for people online. I'm scouring the internet, whether it be Facebook or wherever, trying to get people that I grew up watching to come on the show so I can talk to, because, hey, for me, it's like a treat. You know, I got to see these people grow up watching them wrestle. Saw you in Smoky Mountain Wrestling and Memphis Wrestling. I've seen Handsome Jimmy, whether it be his old clips of him and Johnny Valiant on WWF, or whether it be the Boogie Woogie Man, which I love the most, I guess, in the WCW. Yeah, you know, you had Handsome Jimmy in Memphis. He was a character of his own, but the Boogie Woogie Man always cracked me up, that version of him. And so, you know, for me, I'm always trying to get people on. Now, not everybody is as easy to approach or reach, you know, as you were. Jimmy was easy to approach. And matter of fact, Jimmy runs a little museum/school thing every Sunday in Shawsville, Virginia, I believe is where he lives. And he said he only keeps open 4 hours a day. He said I'm kind of getting up there in age, you know, so 4 hours a day, that's a big day for me here now. But he said anybody who ever wants to come up there can come up there. It's a free of charge to come in, look at all the stuff he's got on the walls. He said, just come up here. He said, hang out with me for 4 hours. We'll just sit here and talk wrestling. He said, everybody comes in, gets a hug around the neck. That's the only thing you got to worry about. He said, you ain't getting away from it.
Well, last time I saw him, there's a guy in East Tennessee in Kingsport, the king of Kingsport, Bo James. And Bo runs shows up there, and he inducted Carl Fergie, you know, who's Jerry Lawler's first cousin, him, Carl, and Honky Tonk Man, Wayne Ferris. They're all cousins. Carl and I into a Tennessee Hall of Fame on the same night, and Handsome Jimmy was the one that gave Carl speech. And I tell you, he just in that role, I mean, he was just unbelievable. You know,
Now I do remember Carl Fergie. I'll be honest with you, I did not know he was related to Lawler too. I knew that the Honky Tonk Man was Wayne Ferris. I knew about him, but I didn't know Carl Fergie was related to him though.
Oh yeah, and what a great guy! I tell you what, he'd be a great guest. He refereed and helped out at Mid-South for years. You know, the birth of the Rock and Roll Express. I mean, Rock and Roll Express was really started in Memphis, but they didn't have the popularity that they had once they got to Mid-South Wrestling and then went on down to WCW.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, you already had the Fabulous Ones there that were big, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know,
so
two different
Rock and Roll Express were like second fiddle.
Yeah, so, I mean, but Rock and Roll went to Mid-South and tore it up, just like the Fantastics, just like Tommy and Bobby. Now, I'm not sure who came up with the gimmick and exactly where it started. But, I mean, I never remember them really being big in Memphis. But, man, they were huge over in Mid-South. You know, had some great matches. I mean, two guys that, you know, again, it's just, you know, you look at Stone Cold Steve Austin, you know, how many different gimmicks he had before he finally took off. And, I mean, I think he's
Stone Cold was the one that took him where he really wanted to go. Stunning Steve Austin carried him around for a while, but Stone Cold was the winner.
I was in the Memphis locker room or the TD5 studios. His real name was Steve Williams. And Jerry Jarrett said, hey, there's already a Steve Williams. You got to come up with something. And Steve Austin came up with, you know, the $6 Million Man, and then he was stunning Steve Austin, and I wrestled against him in WCW as a Hollywood Blonde, him and Brian Pillman, and then he was a ringmaster with Ted DiBiase. He managed him, and then, you know, the Stone Cold deal, and the rest is history. Arguably, the best.
I'm glad the ringmaster didn't last long. That was a time frame when Vince McMahon was just making a circus out of wrestlers up there. To me, it seemed like.
Well,
I didn't care for that time frame too much.
And I wrestled against him in St. Louis, and that ringmaster deal, you know, is almost all scientific. And you know, I'm telling you, the fans just, you know, it was just hardly no reaction. You could have heard a pin drop, you know, through the whole match. You know, it's 16, 17,000 people there. But hey, when he got his chance, I mean, again, you know, you can make the argument. You know, he's possibly one of the top, you know, 2 or 3 wrestlers there. You know, I mean, money drawing and entertainment-wise, I mean, you know, he was awesome there. You know, so just being in the right place at the right time. You know, the Babs, when they left Memphis, they went to AWA, never got over, went to Mid-South. I mean, they just had the matches in Memphis, and it just you know,
I never understood
anywhere else.
Yeah, I never understood why they didn't make it bigger anywhere else. They didn't do well in the Crockett Cup when they got in there. They weren't put over there. They didn't put them over in the AWA. They didn't put them over anywhere else they went to.
I think they tried to. I think they tried. But again, I'm telling you, it's that magic. And back then, you know, that's when they quit letting an angle or storyline run for months. So I think they were kind of thrown out there. And it, you know, didn't take off immediately. And, you know, so they started looking for somebody else. You know,
well, now one of my friends had a good theory on it. He said that, you know, the original Fabulous Ones, I mean, the Fargo brothers, they were a big Memphis thing. They were just big in Memphis. They didn't go anywhere else really be big as the Fargo brothers, but Fabulous Ones. But they were big there as the Fabs. So the fact that Jackie Fargo came out and put his stamp of approval on these two guys in that area made them an automatic hit as the Fabulous Ones there. And the same thing took off when they tried to take off and go somewhere else and be big. The name Fabulous Ones didn't carry the merit there as it did in Memphis somewhere else.
Right.
So people in Minnesota, when they went to the AWA, they didn't care if you were the Fabulous people, you know. We got the Road Warriors. We got Kurt Hennig and Scott Hall, or Kurt Hennig and Greg Gagne, whoever it was at the time.
Yeah.
The Long Riders, you know, the Freebirds may have been there at that time. I don't know. Bachwinkle and somebody else, I think, was there teaming together.
Yeah.
Drawing a blank on who it was now, but anyway.
You know, they could do an interview. They could certainly wrestle. You know, so again, you just never know. I mean, I know I was here when they left, or I was in Memphis territory when they left. Lawler and I were the only two that, rode together. We rode to all the towns together. I'd be driving, but at least he'd be driving his car, so that was a good thing. But now he really helped me out and took care of me. But I mean, I remember talking to him about it. By any means, they weren't pushed out the door, and they certainly tried to keep them. They tried to offer them more money, but they just, they had it in their minds that they were ready to make a move.
Well, sometimes you just got to find out, and you go with it and you see how it works. Hey, we got a little bit less than 4 minutes left to go. I thought I'd ask you real quick, what are you doing these days? I know that you're not really involved with wrestling or anything, so.
I had to break down and get a real job. I'm a national sales manager for a company called Hydroflow Pumps. It's based out of Nashville, and I go all over the world selling pumps and move water, everything from irrigation to mining to industrial to municipal. Got about 6-7 guys under me. I'll be heading to Amarillo, Texas, about 5 o'clock in the morning, and so always traveling, just like the rest of the days, but just isn't quite as glamorous.
You might have got the wrestling out of the system, but you still got the traveling in the blood, though, it sounds like.
There you go. But hey, I got a couple of shows coming up in April, May, and June, and very excited. Get to see some of the old guys. My main man, Johnny Crashridge, that's my partner for all those years, and man, I mean, more like a brother to me. I mean, that dude took me under his wing and showed me a lot of stuff. So looking forward to that.
Well, look, I just want to let you know I really appreciate you taking time out of your life to come in and talk with us tonight. I truly appreciate it as a fan myself, growing up watching you guys wrestle. Love getting the chance to talk to you guys, and I really appreciate you coming on with us. If you like, anytime down the road, if you want to come back on again and talk wrestling, let me know, and I'll be glad to have you on at any time. It's always good to talk with you guys.
Man.
All right, well, I will go ahead.
I certainly appreciate it, and good to talk to all the people, and again, we'll stay in touch, and I'll try to push some people your way.
I'd appreciate it if you could. Let the guys there from Memphis and beyond, Tracy Smothers and people. I would love to talk to all of them. Tracy Smothers, I saw a lot of growing up for sure and everything. And a matter of fact,
yeah, he's great.
I lived about 15 minutes away from him before I moved here to Florida. He was in Springfield, Tennessee, and I was in Pleasant View, Tennessee.
Right.
So
exactly right. Still there.
We're not too far away from each other. I believe so. He said the other day he was still in Springfield. So, but yeah, and hey, if you do end up making Pensacola for that thing, make sure you let me know ahead of time. I'll make it a point to be there for sure.
I sure will. It's certainly been my pleasure, Chris. You have a great night.
You too. Thanks for coming on again. We'll talk to you later.
See you, buddy.
All right, bye. Now, everybody, that was Davey Haskins there. Also did a stint as Davey Rich a while back, as you heard him say. Another great guest we've had for you, and a great show, conversation of wrestling as usual. I want to go ahead and let you guys know, as always, before we leave here, we got a minute left to go. Don't forget to go to the website and register there at www. And I mess it up every week. I'm sorry. Do not put the www on there. Go to the website, bodyslamthecompetition.com. Make sure you register with your email, and you'll be a part of the newsletter that goes out. Get all the blogs, all the podcasts that comes out. And any contest that we might have going on at the time, you'll register yourself in with as well, but being a part of that. So we look forward to having you there with us. We're also on Facebook. Look us up. Join us on Facebook, on our regular Facebook page, and our like page as well. That way you can keep up with some things that are going on with us also. And until that time comes, next week we will have Teddy Long on the show with us. As you people may remember, he was a referee in WCW and host of the Thursday SmackDown. He was general manager for SmackDown. Managed a lot of great teams over the years. So we're going to have him on talking for an hour with Eddie. It's going to be great talking with him as well. Hope you guys join us next week. In the meantime, keep loving wrestling. My name is Chris Adams. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.